Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining another one of Magnolia's webinars. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. First of all, today is Magnolia's fifth birthday. So we are celebrating 5 years being chartered with ASCA and being an organization that has the mission of providing school counselors throughout the state with all the resources that they need in order to be great school counselors, in order to do all the things we need to do for our students. The other thing is if you are trying to receive MBCC hours toward the end of this presentation, I will put a link in for a Google form that will have to be completed today in order to get your MBCC hours. Um, at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Charlotte Armstrong, who is going to be doing our webinar today. And I definitely think we're in for a treat. I have told her not to be nervous, that she is among amazing school counselors and that she is in a safe space. So I'm turning it over to Charlotte. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Dorsey and Krista Brewer, who are our chair and assistant chair of the Magnolia State School Counseling Association. And thank you to all of you who took time out of your day to have lunch with me and MASCA to enjoy a session on self-regulation and you being the strategy. So to get started with our presentation, So today we're going to be talking about navigating big emotions in the middle school years, building a calm in a wonderful world full of triggers in middle school. So in the chat, if you will, if you would drop your K-12 setting and your location, I just kind of want to see who all is in the room today. If you'll do that for me, I'd appreciate it. And I just want to make sure I'm sharing my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Right now, we don't see it.
Hang on one second. This should be better.
Yes.
And was still there?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So thank you all for putting in your responses. This session is developed around the adolescents, but there's some generalized information in here that you can apply to any K-12 setting. So today you will gain an understanding of how middle school age brains respond to triggers. You'll gain insight into why emotional reactions can feel intense during adolescence, and you'll learn some practical approaches that can help teens manage stress and their emotion and regulate their emotions. Again, I'm a middle school counselor. I've been a middle school counselor for 5 years. I've worked in the high school setting and I've also worked in the elementary setting, but my absolute favorite has become middle school. By far, it is the most challenging age group to work with, but it's so much fun and it's filled with so many learning experiences. I feel like in middle school, because of puberty, the transition into a larger school with more freedoms and accessibility to things. I find that middle school students, especially coming in the first year, sixth grade, I'm the sixth grade counselor here, and that their experiences are totally brand new. Some of the nuances of, their peer interactions, those things are the same, but the element of middle school and the newfound freedoms and the new and more responsibilities, I found that it's been most challenging. And then also, I found that with puberty and their developmental age, at this point coming into middle school, they're trying to figure out who they are, how to be friends, how to get along with others, and on top of managing their own personal crises and their own situations at home. So they are a big ball of intense emotions that they're trying to figure out, how do I do this? So my presentation is geared around my individual interest in learning more about self-regulation and how can I help my students. I push myself regularly to learn new things so that I can be an effective school counselor to help, especially in middle school where they're growing rapidly, they're in puberty, they're experiencing all these changes. So I just aim to work hard at learning the most that I can to help students. So, a few things that I want you guys to think about. If you will, drop in the chat. I've got a few questions that I will later have the answers for throughout the presentation. So, my presentation is around self-regulation and also brain development and the two together. What does it look like? How do students learn to, how individuals just in general learn how to self-regulate? What is happening to the brain? What part of the brain is impacted, affected, and also how does that part of the brain grow, develop, and maintain for stability in having positive relationships with staff and students throughout the middle school years? So, first question, if you'll just put in, and this can be 1 to 2 word answers. Number one, what system controls emotions and reactivity? Let's start there. If you'll just drop a quick answer in there. Dr. Dorsey, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat. Do we have some answers flowing in there?
We do. So far, nervous system,
Okay.
nervous system.
Okay. All right. Number two, which brain system is highly sensitive during adolescence? What kind of responses am I getting, Dr. Dorsey?
I think maybe they're still typing. I'm gonna give them a few more seconds. I
Sure.
haven't had one to come through yet.
Okay. And if you don't know the answers or don't care to respond, you could skip to the next question. Just make sure you identify which question you're answering and just put the number and your 1 to 2 word response.
I don't have anything yet. If you want to
Okay.
come through.
All right. Number three, which part of the brain is coined the emotional brain? And then lastly, what does dysregulation look like in the classroom?
Limbic system is what I'm seeing for maybe two. Maybe that's
Okay.
what we're going for number two is the limbic system.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe for number four, I have a blows up. I have limbic. I have outburst for number four. Shut
Yeah.
down for number four.
Yes. I
Uh,
definitely must have some middle school counselors in the room today.
irritability for number four. Outburst. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for responding to those questions. Now we will move on further into the presentation. So self-regulation is not to be confused with self-control. Self-regulation is the ability to modify emotions and respond to situations with balance, calm, and control. And in self-control, that's stopping the impulse. Saying no to dessert when you really, really, really want it. That is having self-control. So those two sometimes seem to, for some, to be interchangeable, and they're not. They're totally two different things. So, what part of the brain are we talking about? If y'all answered limbic system, that's absolutely it. In the limbic system, that part of the brain is responsible for hearing, understanding, making memories, behavior, language, and yes, those wonderful middle school emotions. It's all happening and developed in the limbic system, in the temporal region of the brain. And I'm discussing brain development because I really want you to understand how important brain development is with regard to responses and being able to self-regulate. If this part of the brain does not develop well, then there will be dysregulation. So I'll tie the two together in just a little bit. The functions of the limbic system, our reactions. Um, the hippocampus and the amygdala are the two areas of the limbic system that are responsible for um, how we respond to our emotions, the ability to be alerted by our emotions. It also allows us to act before we think. So, this will play a key factor into self regulation if this area of the brain is not well developed. Acting before we think, a good example of that is getting startled. If someone catches you off guard and your body shakes or trembles, or you raise your hand to defend yourself, that's the amygdala working to alert you that there's danger close by. So it's always active, ready to respond, to quickly process those emotions, especially fear and anger. So it is the emotional side of the brain that allows us to act before we think. So in middle school, unbelievably, you have guessed it. They're in puberty. They have those intense motions. They're defensive. They're highly sensitive. Um, Middle school, I know with girls, especially going through puberty, they can have those challenges when it's their monthly, and they're more irritable. But just think about where that area is coming from. That part of the brain is rapidly growing. It's growing faster than the prefrontal cortex of the brain, so it's always changing. So that's why you see such inconsistencies in students and their emotion, those high intense emotions, is because the limbic system is rapidly growing. And during these times, how you can help is becoming part of the strategy, where you can normalize their emotions when they are in those heated times, creating the calm. And before you do any problem solving, you always want to address how they're feeling in the moment, and just being with them in the moment to help create that calm. And then you can work towards problem solving processes. The limbic system is developed out of positive relational experiences. Remember, you are the strategy in your homes with their friends, people in the community. Having all those positive relationships is so important because it helps the limbic system grow and flourish. And healthy development will allow children to be able to self-soothe, manage the stress, and deal with those big emotions with balance and control. So you are definitely the strategy. So we're going to watch a quick little video to give you more insight to the role of your limbic system.
Did you know that your brain reacts before you even think? Yes, before you can say, angry, I'm nervous.
Uh,
The volume went down.
I apologize. I'm trying to work with the volume, so bear with me 1 second. Can you hear it?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me go back. Can't hear it?
No.
Your body has already
There we
started to prepare. Your heart. Did you know that
go.
your brain reacts before you even think? Yes, before you can say, I'm angry, I'm nervous, or even help, your body has already started to prepare. Your heart rate increases, your breathing speeds up, and your brain goes into alert mode, all thanks to a very old part you carry inside. It's called the limbic system, or as it's sometimes known, your emotional brain. Imagine your brain is like a building. On the top floor is the rational part, the one that thinks, decides, and calculates. But in the basement lives someone very sensitive who reacts quickly, sometimes too quickly. That someone is the limbic system. It's made up of several structures, like the hippocampus, which stores memories, the thalamus, which filters information, and above all, the amygdala. No, not the one they used to remove when you had tonsillitis as a child. This one is different, a kind of emotional alarm. The amygdala scans everything happening around you, and if it detects a possible threat, it activates the response without asking. That's why you sometimes get startled by a sound or feel nervous without knowing why. It's not that you're exaggerating, it's that your amygdala already hit the red button. And here's the curious part. Your amygdala can react before the rational part of your brain understands what's going on. First we feel, and then, if we can, we think. This explains a lot of things like why you sometimes explode, cry for no apparent reason, or freeze when someone asks you a difficult question. You're not crazy. You're not broken. Your brain is simply trying to protect you. That said, it can get a little paranoid, as if it sees danger where there really isn't any. But here's the good news. Even though we can't turn off the alarm, we can teach it to sound only when it's truly necessary. How? With awareness, with practice, with breathing, therapy, or meditation. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part, can learn to calm the amygdala. And little by little, we move from reacting to responding. Because you have emotions, but you're not a slave to them. And that, even if your amygdala gets a bit upset, is very good news. And you? Have you ever felt like you reacted without thinking? Do you find it hard to calm your emotions sometimes? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to read you.
All right, thank you so much for that. So now we're going to move into dysregulation. It is the inability to calm. They become easily overstimulated by the environment. So when we talk about brain development and how to tie the two together in learning how to be self-regulated versus being dysregulated, children who do not receive safe and loving attention and care may experience high levels of toxic stress, trauma, which affects the brain development and can lead to anxiety, depression, and impulsivity. My experiences have been in middle school. I do tons and tons of conflict resolutions daily. In fact, I had two before I came on the webinar today. And essentially, just in the moment, not being able to express themselves in a calm manner in that high intense motion leads to escalation on the other person's part. And then there's the argument. And when the two students got brought to me, one of them was completely in tears. The other one, arms was folded, not really, just kind of withdrawn and not really willing to be a part of the conflict resolution session at that given time. But I try to apply regularly, addressing the emotion first, providing that safe, calm space for them, letting them know that I hear them, I am with them. Yes, we do have some things that we need to work on or work through, but just being there with them first, it tends to relax students a little bit more and help them feel that I am with them, that my whole goal is to help them go through those emotions, but also not to deny them. I tell my students all the time, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be whatever you're feeling, those feelings are there. We just have to learn to regulate them and sometimes control them when necessary, but more important, acknowledge them, normalize them, make it real to them that it's okay to feel these feelings. A lot of times, some of my students come to school just explaining that, I can't get mad. I'm not supposed to get mad. I'm not supposed to cry for whatever reason with regard to their family life. And I never tell a student that that's not okay. What I do encourage students is to let them know that your feelings are real and it's okay to feel them. We just have to be mindful of what we do when we're in those big moments, and then teaching them how to self-soothe, how to calm down and regulate the emotion, still identified as a real emotion, but also what do we do with it next? How do we get to overcoming that emotion, identifying what caused that emotion, and then working towards a healthy plan of, all right, how do we work this out? How do we get to the next step of resolving the problem that I have with this student? 9 times out of 10, when I take students through this process of conflict resolution, using some of the self co-regulation skills that you'll learn about in just a little bit, it works. It's almost like it's just magic. I mean, I'm sorry, did you say something? All
No.
right. Okay. So next. All right, so you are the strategy. That's the whole goal of this webinar today is to let you know that you can be a healthy part of helping students self-regulate because you're it. So, which version will you treat them with? Literally, which one would you treat them with? And I know students come to school. Some of the pictures that you see may give you thoughts of a student that you've worked with this week, someone you talked to this morning, or even some personal experiences, at home, wherever that may be. But these are real pictures that are happening. And these pictures give you clear examples of what is being said and what is being communicated. We always want to make sure that we're normalizing feelings, acknowledging them, and then also bringing that calm before we go into problem solving. So when children are self-regulated, they can learn, they can empathize, reason, be self-aware, and solve problems. I know you have some of these students in your classrooms that you see daily that are able to work through these processes with just ease. It's because part of their brain, the limbic system, has been developed out of positive relational experiences. So now let's kind of look at what dysregulation looks like. And some of y'all mentioned some of these earlier in the chat. So they have balance issues, they're avoiding crowded places, they have processing delays, and they're unable to understand or follow multi-step directions. Talk about math right there. And the big emotions and not being able to regulate them, what that looks like in a classroom for a student, being able to just follow those steps to get the answer right. They visit the nurse often, they're hyper vigilant. They're missing assignments, they're failing grades, they're not able to communicate their needs very well. They're saying, I don't know. They're staring out the window. And I know you've got those students in your classrooms that are raising their hands obsessively, hanging out at the teacher's desk, hanging out in your office, just being over compliant. And then also, you've got students that can't sit still or waiting in the line. And a lot of this tends to replicate what when students are being diagnosed as having ADHD. I am a proponent of diagnosis, but I'm also a proponent of, is that really a diagnosis or is that an inability for a student to not be able to self-regulate? It also looks like poor time management. They're disorganized. They're not able to plan and predict anything. I know you've seen those self-sabotaging behaviors, not completing their work, and they're always arguing with you, always arguing with other students to avoid the classroom. They're also having problems with their peers. They're fighting, following the wrong crowds, or inserting themselves in situations that's just absolutely not meant for them. So again, you are the strategy. We are so much better together. So this is what we can do. Co-regulation, modeling what we want to see. So in that very moment, you have that student in front of you, or you're walking down the hallway and you see a teacher and a student having those back and forth conversations, and you stand there just for a minute. The teacher gives the student a break. The first thing you can do is just model what you want to see. If you want them to calm down, you be calm. You have a soft tone. But we'll get into more of those examples of what co-regulation looks like. So make friends with the emotions. Practice a warm, soft gaze. Avoid the narrow eyes, the clenched jaw, the tight fist. We want to pause and breathe and be relaxed. We want to get on their level with them, whether they're sitting on the floor, if you're able to get on the floor with them, or if you're able to bend over or squat, whatever you can do to let them know that you're right there with them. Avoid standing over them, lecturing them, blaming them, having an elevated volume, shaming them. We want to validate their feelings, listen, use fewer words, be calm, have slow breathing, and avoid those quick moments. They're already escalated. We want to help them regulate their emotions, and we want to be there with them. We want to co regulate with them. That's how we make friends with the emotion. Some other strategies that you can use, and we're close to the end of my slide presentation. So more things that you can do with your students. You can invite them to journaling, give them some water, a protein snack. You can color with them, paint with them, and make sure you're also paying attention to their body language. As counselors, we read the face, and I'm sure some of y'all have read my face throughout this presentation, go, yeah, she is really nervous, because I really am. But paying attention to their body language and what's presented on the face, because that communicates more than they'll ever share with you sometimes. Offer fidgets, a weighted blanket, meditation, breathing techniques, whether that's blowing bubbles or using a pinwheel to kind of help them bring their breathing down. The most important thing that I feel that we can do as school counselors is just listen, hold a space for them, allow them to feel whatever they want to feel without judgment, no matter how irrational we think they seem to be. And we all know we've seen those irrational students, and we're kind of going, they're just, as they say, doing the most. And sometimes that's how they see their world. But it just being there with them, empathizing with them, validating their moments, bringing that calm before we address, hey, what's going on? How can we help today? Because we are better together. I can say one book that I've absolutely loved that I read probably 2 or 3 times is The Whole Brain Child. That book is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sure most of you have already read this book before, but I refer back to this book constantly because I'm trying to understand what my students are going through, what are they facing, and just looking at it from a developmental standpoint. Erickson's life stages. I use the Erickson's life stages along with the whole brain child to marry the two together so I can be an effective school counselor. If I don't understand their world or understand anything about their brain, and how to mix the two together, I'm less likely to be as effective as I aim to be in working with my students. So it's so important for us that I feel that, through research and trying to understand our students, understanding their world, regardless if they're in high school, elementary, or in the middle school, they're constantly growing and changing and being faced with different things on a personal level that they have to do the work on their own. And as school counselors, we can walk alongside them. And the tips and strategies that I learn, I try to share them with my teachers and give them some insight as to, from a counseling perspective, on this is what might be going on with your student in the classroom. And I have found more times than none that when I talk to teachers And even, my parents that are friends, my friends that are parents of younger children, when we're talking about what their child is going through, naturally, my first thing that I go to is how old they are, where they are developmentally. I talk to them about the brain, and of course, they're looking at me and trying to figure out why do I need all this science? Well, the science behind a person does determine their outcome, what kind of person they become. And the more information we have, and the more time we spend doing research and trying to blend developmental stages with brain development, we can help children more than we can help them more. We can improve their outcomes and become more of a successful and effective counselor. So those are my references. And do I have any questions? I'll stop sharing my screen now and go to the chat to see if I have any questions. Thank you all for being here with me today. I appreciate your time spending it learning a little bit more about self-regulation. So thank you so much for that.
Charlotte, thank you so much for this presentation. It was very much needed. Being once a middle school counselor, I could tell you this is kind of the area that you live in. Got one question, I think. Hold on.
Yeah.
Monica asked, have you had this presentation with teachers and have they been receptive, understanding?
No, you guys are my test people. I have introduced the tips to parents, and I do have a teacher parent in my building that I've met with her to share some of the co-regulation strategies with her, and she's reported back positive reports on the outcomes she's having at home. And the student in the building, he is on a behavior plan, and the teachers are reporting better some progress in how he manages his feelings. He gets upset a whole lot and with different emotions. And I've seen progress there. But no, I have not shared it with my teachers. I wanted to give it to you guys first, get some feedback, because I would love to definitely share this with my teachers in the building. The school year's at the end, but I'm hoping to be able to start the school year with providing teachers, just equipping them with more things that they could try to improve their classroom management and have successful student outcomes. I have. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Elena. I appreciate my DeSoto County people. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and thank you for the questions. Just trying to see.
And I put it in there once. I just put it in there again, the Google Doc that needs to be completed if you are trying to get NBCC hours. And Charlotte, you'll email us this presentation so that we can add it with the video.
Yes, I will do that.
So under our members only, on our website, there's a tab for members only. If you go there, probably by Monday, we'll have the video up along with this presentation. All right, if we don't have any more questions.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you being here with me today. This is my first presentation through MASCA. So it's definitely practice for me. And I'm glad I have an audience of school counselors that give me grace and allow me to have this safe space to make mistakes and work through them. So thank you so very much for your time. I really appreciate it.